You are Locked On Giants Postcast, part of Locked On Sports San Francisco on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Giants Postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR. And today, the Giants get the game-tying run in scoring position and the winning run on base in both the 8th and the 9th innings, but come up short, striking out in both situations in true Giants fashion as they fail to complete the comeback as they're defeated by the Diamondbacks 8-7. Harrison was rocked for 7 hits and 6 runs in just 2.2 innings of work. After a nice start to the season for Harrison, it's been a steep decline here in baseball's dog days of summer, and we got to discuss, is this guy cooked? We got to talk about it. I'm going to just go ahead and say right now, no, and I'm going to explain why. Giants have now lost 3 in a row on this homestand, and it doesn't look to get any easier going forward, but some good news regarding both Tristan Beck, who we saw on the mound tonight, and highly touted prospect Bryce Eldridge, who's making some noise down in the minor leagues. We'll break it all down, but first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports San Francisco YouTube channel. Please, if you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. And thanks for also listening on the Locked On Giants podcast feed. However you're tuning in, we appreciate you making us your first listen. Of course, we're our first listen. I can't help but listen to myself when I'm doing the show. And make sure for your second listen, you check out the Locked On Giants Daily Show for more in-depth coverage. Ben Kaspick does a great job. And now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Giants in this one, it did not look very good for them. I'm shocked that they managed to scratch and claw their way back into even making this a one-run game. It was a ton of D-backs runs early on. In the first inning, by the end of the first inning, Diamondbacks were up 3-0. Manufacturing a run with singles, doubles, and grounders, and then a 2-run bomb from Gerchik. And then that guy, he had another home run later in this game too for the Diamondbacks. The Giants, they had a lot of errors on defense today. They had 3 errors. None of them really directly translated to a run unless you're counting that Grant McCray error, the throwing error in the second inning. I think that run coming home probably would have scored even if that throw was on line. But regardless, the Giants did not play very good defense in this one. The one moment that did kind of make a difference in this one wasn't ruled an error. As I said, the Giants had 3 errors. It could have been 4, but I think Luciano got a little bit of a home field benefit from not having a play in the 3rd inning recorded as an error. He had a ground ball hit to him. He was fielding it to his right. Kind of kicked it around a little bit, fielded it cleanly, and could not get it out of his glove on the exchange. It would have been a tough play, to be fair, for him to pull the ball out and get it a throw off to first base. The runner out of the box was one of those seemingly, it's like every guy on this Diamondbacks team can run. And so, it puts pressure on the defense. That ball kind of ate up Luciano, couldn't get the throw off in time. As I said, they did not charge him with an error for it, but I think they maybe could have. I did not get the best view of seeing where that runner coming down the baseline was. And that was, like I said, a tough play with Luciano ranging towards the middle of the infield, away from first base, had his back towards the bag. However, that could have been the 3rd out of the inning. Instead, it loads the bases, and that was the end of Kyle Harrison's day in the top of the 3rd, was that play. Could have kept Kyle Harrison out there a little bit longer. Instead, in comes Tristan Beck to make his 2024 debut for the Giants. In this moment in itself was kind of cool, even though Beck ended up giving up a single that allowed 2 runs to score. By the way, those 2 runs charged to Kyle Harrison, obviously, because it was the first batter that Tristan Beck faced of that inning. But we got to mention this guy. He had an aneurysm in his arm. Just listen to that, an aneurysm in his arm earlier this season. I mean, that injury just sounds terrifying. And for him to come back and be able to pitch in this same year with all the damage that was done to his throwing arm is incredible. And credit to him for continuing to work all season long and get back. It would be really easy for a guy who's I mean, like Tristan Beck, who's the team's not really competitive. They're not vying for a playoff position. It would be easy for a guy to kind of lose sight of making their return in a season like this. It's September 3rd, and this guy's coming out here to make his debut in his return from injury. I think that's a really good sign for just the type of competitor that Tristan Beck is. And I liked what I saw from him last year. He had an okay evening tonight in his 2024 debut for the Giants. He pitched 3 1/3 innings in his first time out, gave up 1 run on 2 hits, 1 earned run on 2 hits, and walked 2 guys, struck out 4, gave up the 1 home run. His ERA for the year is now sitting at 2.70. So, I mean, not a bad outing from a guy who just made his 2024 debut after coming back from a very serious injury earlier this year. Tristan Beck was supposed to be a big part of this Giants pitching staff this season. And like so many other Giants pitchers this year, it just didn't work out how we had envisioned it. I mean, at the start of the season, we were talking about the Giants maybe having like 10 different starters that they could lean on, like in all seriousness, between the minor leaguers that were going to come up, like Hayden Birdsong that we knew we were going to see this year, and guys that we had expected to produce, like maybe a Tristan Beck and a Keaton Wynn. And instead, we've gotten the mixed bag of results that we've gotten all season long from this Giants starting pitching staff. And I mean, it's nice to see Beck back out there on the mound in the uniform, striking guys out. Good for Tristan Beck. However, the Giants, not so good on the field today, even though they did come back and make this a 1-run game. Let's get right into the 8th inning, or how the Giants came back from this one, I should say. Started in the 6th inning after it was already 7-1. Gerchik's second home run of the night, a solo home run in the 5th, made it a 7-1 game, and it had me thinking, isn't football season yet, man? I'm so tired of watching this Giants team just get kicked around every night. It seems like. I mean, they've now lost 3 in a row. But for what it's worth, in the bottom of the 6th, they start their comeback. Chapman smashes a solo home run, 109.9 feet, or 109.9 miles an hour, 406 feet, 22nd home run of the year for Chappie. It was a solo shot, though, as is the case with 90%. That's a random number I'm pulling out of thin air, but it feels like 90% of the Giants' home runs are all solo home runs. I'm sure it's not that high, but man, it's what it feels like. The Giants just struggle so hard to get runners on base, and it shows with their solo home runs constantly. They cannot get runners on in front of their power hitters. It's also tough to determine where the home runs are going to come from this lineup. Yes, Chapman has had a good year. Yes, Ramos has had a good year. Other than those 2 guys, no one is really. I mean, Tyler Fitzgerald's had a terror where he was smashing home runs. It's kind of cooled off as of late. But, I mean, there's no one else on this team that you can really qualify as like a legitimate home run threat, except for maybe those 3 guys. And let's not pretend that this is the same type of home run threat. I'm not even saying like a Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani. I mean, like, not even the same as like a Teoscar Hernandez or a guy like that, So the Giants are so far and away from being a team that can do all this damage with home runs and at the plate. And they suck at getting runners on in front of their power hitters, even when they do run into one. But I do think that part of the reason is that you just don't know where the power is going to come from this lineup on a daily basis. Yes, Chapman's got 20 plus, but that's not enough. I mean, we still don't have a 30 plus home run guy, and it shows in this lineup and its lack of the Giants' lack of ability to get runners on base. I mean, yes, that in and of itself is an issue. The fact that the Giants can't take walks, they strike out all the time. They seemingly are allergic to base hits to keep rallies going. But they do a really good job of getting leadoff runners on in general. Just in every inning, they're one of the top 10 teams, have been throughout most of the season, at getting leadoff runners on. But they just can't drive them in, and the power just doesn't show up, it seems like, when they have these runners on base. But after that Chapman solo home run, it was a 7-2 Diamondbacks lead, and then the Giants finally got Ryan Nelson out of the game there in the 7th inning. Way too long for an opponent starting pitcher to stay in the game. We've talked about this as a key for the Giants all season long. When they let the opposing starting pitcher pitch deep into games, they have a really hard time winning. And tonight was much of the same. But once they did get into the bullpen, they did a lot of damage. And most of it came in that 8th inning. Mike Yastrzemski's solo home run to lead off that 8th inning. Again, a Giants home run, got to be a solo home run. Again, though, it's tough to hit a home run with a multi-run home run when it's a leadoff home run in the inning. It's kind of impossible to do that. So anyways, Yastrzemski home run cuts the lead to 7-3, 101.7 feet. Oppo Taco on a Tuesday night, 384 feet, and 13th of the season for Mike Yastrzemski, who's been playing pretty well as of late. Picks up his 101st home run of his career. Trimmed the lead to 7-3. Then Ramos singles, and then with 2 outs, Wade Jr. walks to put runners at first and second base. And I thought that was probably going to be where this rally ended, as most Giants, quote, rallies, and after just 1 run, and usually that's it. But credit the Giants. With 2 outs, Encarnacion singles, run scores, errant throw to third base allows both runners to advance, cuts the lead to 7-4. Somehow the Giants now have the tying run at the plate. And it's Pat Bailey, who has just been down bad, like abysmally bad in these last couple weeks. I mean, he got hurt even prior to the injury. He was not doing super great at the dish. Seems like Pat Bailey's struggles, the same thing that plagued him last year at the end of the year, are back again this year. But credit Pat Bailey, because he knows he's been struggling. So what's he do? He lays down a bunt. He reads the defense, and Pat Bailey is obviously not the fastest guy on this team by any stretch of the imagination, but he reads the defense, drops down a perfectly executed bunt. Third base was playing way back, forces the pitcher to come off the mound and try and make the play, slips and falls on his butt. Even if he fielded it cleanly, that was such a perfect bunt. Pat Bailey's probably beating it out down the line. Great situational at bat. And I have not said that in quite some time with Pat Bailey specifically. He's in the middle of one of the worst slumps of his career. And he's a guy who can't hit water if he fell out of a boat, can't buy a hit. This guy did exactly what you're supposed to do in that situation, which is try to get on in any possible way you can. For Pat Bailey, it results in a bunt base hit and an RBI, scores Lamont Wade Jr., and it cuts the Diamondbacks lead to 7-5, just a 2-run lead at this point, puts the tying run on base as well. Then Marco Luciano singles to right field. Good piece of hitting as he inside outs a hanging slider the other way, and another run scores, 7-6. Diamondbacks led at that point, and then right when the Giants have an opportunity to they had been striking, but right when they have the opportunity to grab the lead, tie the game, they have the go-ahead run on base, and Luis Matos at the dish, and he strikes out looking to end the inning. And man, oh man, you can't do that. You just cannot strike out looking in that situation. I mean, you got to swing the bat. He took 2 pitches in that at-bat that were not pitches that you should take. That first strike of the at-bat, Matos should have been up there ready to hit. The Giants were collecting hits one after the other, and Luciano had just smacked a single on a hanging slider. You got to be up there ready to hit, looking for a mistake pitch. That first pitch of the at-bat was a mistake pitch. Matos just watched it. He did not look locked in. It's hard to come in as a pinch hitter off and just turn it on. I get it. I don't really, I get the you want the lefty righty matchup and all that, but I think maybe you stay with Grant McCray in that situation, who's been a lot better than Luis Matos has lately. So it's an interesting choice by Bob Melvin to go to take McCray out for Matos in this one. Again, I'm not really quite sure why he did that. Matos, after he came in for McCray, went 0-for-2 with 2 strikeouts. McCray was 1-for-2 on the night before he got taken out of this one. McCray's also batting a little bit better than Matos has been. They both have obviously had very limited action this year, but I'm just not quite sure why you would take out Grant McCray in that situation. Then in the top of the ninth, the Diamondbacks manufacture an insurance run, and this was huge because this ended up being the difference in this game. After a Carroll single, he steals second base and then goes ahead and steals third base. And then Christian Walker smacks a single and scores Carroll to give the D-backs an 8-6 lead. And as I said, that was huge because the Giants were able to score a run in the ninth inning after Yaz smacked a leadoff single. As I said, Yaz has been playing pretty well, pretty sneaky good as of late. Ramos then comes up and smashes a double down the left field line, and Mike Yastrzemski scores, trims the lead to 8-7, tying run in scoring position with less than 2 outs. But then up comes Matt Chapman, who hits a bouncer back to the pitcher for the second out of the inning. And then they intentionally walk Lamont Wade Jr. to get to Encarnacion, who strikes out to end the game. How else could it end for these Giants? Of course they're going to strike out when you need them to do anything but that. Of course they're going to do that. It's so unbelievably frustrating to see the Giants just continuously come up short. And that's the calling card of this team this year. Coming up short in these big situations, in these big moments, especially in the second half of the season. They've had so many one-run games not go their way. And it's just in the month of August. I mean, it felt like they had like 6 or 7 different chances to win these one-run games, and that they just threw them away. And so far this season, in these one-run games, the Giants are now 20-22. So you've had a lot of them, a lot of really close games for this Giants team. It's what happens when you're an average team, when you're a team that's, basically 500. I mean, I know they're 3 games now under 500 with the loss. I think 3, right? Yeah, 3 games under 500 with the loss. But as I said so many times earlier this season, you have 3 or 4 of these games, of these one-run games, go a little bit differently. This whole season, this whole month of September feels different. Even if the Giants didn't end up making the playoffs, they would have been right there. They would have been right there pushing for a spot. We would be talking about playoff contention every single night. Instead, I'm sitting here doing this post-game show. I didn't even check to see how far back the Giants are from the Atlanta Braves because, frankly, it doesn't matter. The Giants aren't making the playoffs. I don't care how close they get. I really don't. This team is just not going to make the playoffs. And I at least wanted to see them like hunting for a spot. I didn't want to be calling it a season before the last month of it had even been played. I wanted to at least be invested in this team through the end of September. Instead, I'm so comfortable just turning the calendar and focusing just on football and getting ready for some Warriors basketball, because this Giants team, other than looking forward to the future and seeing what's going to be, the deal for the 2025 season, I really, there's just no more juice left in the 2024 season for me. I don't really care to see how Blake Snell finishes the year. I really don't. It'd be nice to have him have some, nice starts. But I really care if he sticks around next year. That's what I care about. Care about the fact that the Giants should have unloaded a lot of these guys at the deadline. How dumb does it look now to have held on to those guys? And I said it back then. You needed to retain talent into next season. You weren't going to, even if you got to the playoffs this year, you weren't going to do any real damage. You needed to start building towards next year. And unless you had some kind of crystal ball where you could guarantee Blake Snell was going to return, why the hell didn't you trade him? For a 1-year rental in a year where you maybe might make the last wild card? I mean, come on. Please be realistic about what this fan base wants and expects, and try and go out and deliver that. Not this break-even BS that we hear from the ownership, but, some playoff success would be nice. It's been quite a while since the Giants have had that, and guess what? We're going to have to wait another year for a chance at that again. Here we are at the end of the season, just, twiddling our thumbs and watching the Diamondbacks and the Padres and the Dodgers all ready to go to the postseason. I mean, the Diamondbacks look like a really good team right now, especially after this win tonight. They're just, it seems like every guy on this team can hit for average, speed, play defense, all the things that we talk about the Giants not being able to do. And when you're a team that doesn't hit a lot of home runs like the Diamondbacks, you need to figure out other ways to score runs. The Giants must be the worst team at manufacturing runs in Major League Baseball. And it seems like the Diamondbacks are one of the best. And that was the difference here tonight, was the Diamondbacks were able to manufacture a run when they needed it, and the Giants were not. They struck out instead. Let's take a quick break here on the Locked On Giants postcast. I talked in the beginning of the show. I said, I've been hearing from some people, just texting some Giants fans and some people on Twitter saying they think Kyle Harrison is cooked. Man, I got to explain why that is just not the case, and we're being too hard on this 23-year-old. Stick with us on the Locked On Giants postcast. I'll be right back. You're listening to the Locked On Giants postcast. As I just said, I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. We'll be right back. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. I love live events, from concerts to sporting events and everything in between, and I rely on Game Time to get my tickets. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. I also love the all-in pricing feature. Toggling this feature on shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. I hate surprise fees. Get them out of here. Make sure you toggle that all-in pricing feature on. Game Time also gives customers the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And with Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Receipt of copy does not constitute an order. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Locked On Giants postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and today, man, the Giants fall again in another one-run game, 8-7 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And Kyle Harrison, only 2.2 innings, 2 2/3 of some very rough, shaky baseball. I mean, his walk to strike ratio this year, like, let's just get right into it, man. Like, I don't really feel like breaking down each and every one of these runs from today, but just knowing what Harrison was doing today, like, just to give you a feel for it, through 73 pitches in 2 2/3 inning, only 46 strikes. He's had a really hard time filling up the strike zone this year. This is something that we've talked about a lot. Looking for Kyle Harrison to make the progression from a thrower to a pitcher. A guy who can get you out with his head just the same way that he can get you out with his arm. And he was doing that in the middle of the season. And I think he's just hitting a wall as far as arm fatigue goes. It's really hard to keep hitting your spots and keep that velo up when your arm just feels like it's going to fall off your body. And I have to imagine that's where Kyle Harrison's at right now. I mean, he has thrown so many more innings this year than he has any other year of his career. Over 120 innings pitched for Kyle Harrison this year. That was even before coming into tonight. But the most he's thrown in a single season in his career, it does across any level of baseball. He threw 113 innings back in 2022 between AA and high single A. And he's obviously, blown by that total this year, and he's going to have a few more starts. Kyle Harrison has started 24 games now. He started 25 games in that 2022 season between those two levels of baseball. But that was also in the minors. He wasn't pitching as deep in games as he's pitching in these major league games, and it's just a different beast. Each pitch is so much more taxing at the major league level than at the minor league level. And Harrison, as I said, I think for a guy who only threw in 7 games last season, for him to pitch and for him to start upwards of 20 this year, that's a good sign for a guy who just needs to work on stretching out and really just needs to add a secondary pitch. Because if you look at Kyle Harrison's fastball, it's phenomenal. I mean, he's got his fastball run value is up there around 10. He's in the top 10% of Major League Baseball in that category. It's the off-speed run value and the breaking run value that are not good. The breaking run value -1, off-speed run value -6. So he's having a really hard time with those secondary and tertiary pitches, his slurve and his changeup. The changeup he's been using more lately with mixed results. The slurve is really what needs to come around for Harrison. If he can really, as you'll see him, try and mix that in like 1-2 or 0-2 counts. And sometimes he'll miss really bad, man. Like, just seems like in certain situations, he does not have a feel for that pitch at all, and it gets away from him. And then he goes back to the fastball, which has that late life to it, and that can get up to 96, 97. And he starts dancing it all around the strike zone, a little bit of that effectively wild nature that he's got, and it works out for him. But you can only be so good being that guy. You can only be so good being that loose cannon flamethrower. If he wants to take that next step and be a potential ace in this league. I mean, I know the Giants have Logan Webb as their ace, but Kyle Harrison is a guy who could develop into a pitcher, not the same as Logan Webb. They're very, very, very different profile-wise. Like one's a two-seamer guy, one's a four-seamer guy. One pitches to contact, one avoids it. One likes ground balls, one gets fly balls. So they couldn't be more different as far as how they go about their business on the mound. But Kyle Harrison absolutely has the talent to develop into an ace if he can just get some of these secondary pitches under control. If he can figure out how to get these misses to be a little less bad. It's fine if you're burying that slurve outside the strike zone on a 0-2 or a 1-2 count, but it's got to start in the strike zone and finish outside, be close enough to make that batter get the bat off the shoulder and take a swing, because some of these are really easy takes, man. He's not doing such a great job of tunneling the arm motion either. So I think these are all things that can get better. And as I said in the beginning of the show, this kid's 23 years old. He's got a lot of time to work on these things, a lot of time to get better. And I think he will. I think this was a big step forward in general this year for Harrison to pitch as many innings as he did. Some of the highs were really high. If you think about how many times that this guy, especially earlier in the season when the Giants were still had some hope at maybe being a playoff team, this guy would come in and stop losing streaks all the time. This guy would come in on the road and win games all the time. I still remember that series very, very vividly in the beginning of the year where the Giants had to go to Boston and then to Philly. And Harrison was the only guy who won a game on that entire road trip when the rest of the Giants looked terrible. Every other Giants starter on that road trip got lit up, Logan Webb included. Kyle Harrison held it down. So this is a guy who, when he's fresh, when he's not dealing with some arm fatigue at the very end of the season, in the last month of the season, he looks a lot better. He looked pretty good against I know it was the Rockies, but he looked pretty good against the Rockies when he struck out 11 of them. You remember that start? So the highs, my point that I'm making, the highs have been high for Harrison just as the lows have been low. And I think for a young guy, you kind of expect that. You're going to have some pretty low lows if you leave your young guy out there to throw, 20 to 25 starts in a season. It's going to get rough at various points in time. You have to expect that. I don't think that Kyle Harrison is cooked. I think Kyle Harrison is going to come back out next year and do himself some cooking in the big leagues as a starting pitcher. And I think he's going to be a go-to guy for the Giants next year, even more so than he was this year. I just need to see him develop a secondary pitch. And I can guarantee you that the Giants pitching staff is going to work with him incredibly hard over the offseason to get that done. We got to take a quick break. I did have some other things I wanted to get to on this show. We got to talk about some Bryce Eldridge updates. It's important, man. This guy, the number one prospect in the Giants system, and he has now been called up to Double-A Richmond. We'll go through it. Got some hardware down there in High A Eugene before he departed. Let's get into it on the other side. Got to have something positive to look forward to for next season. Trying to give you guys at least one positive thing a show to look forward to next year. Here is this year's, we got to come up with a name for the segment, I guess, but here's this year's, today's, what to look for next year in this year's Giants. So stick with us on the Locked On Giants postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. We'll be right back with some Bryce Eldridge breakdowns. And today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. How cool is that? All you need is a YouTube TV base plan, and you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. There's really no other way that you should be watching NFL football in the year 2024. If you got the YouTube TV app, you can take it on the go, anywhere, anytime, any game in the entire country. How else are you watching football if you're doing it any other way? You got to do it this way because you're doing it wrong. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Giants postcast. I am your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and today the Giants fall to the D-backs 8-7, another one-run loss for the San Francisco Giants. They're now 20-22 in these types of games. But the reason but what I wanted to close out this show with is Bryce Eldridge. And the reason I'm bringing up Bryce Eldridge is because this guy just got promoted to Double-A Richmond, which we should mention is very close to his hometown. This guy grew up in Richmond, in Virginia. He grew up in Vienna, Virginia, which is pretty close to Richmond. So shout out Bryce Eldridge, returning home, getting to take some hacks in front of that home crowd that he grew up, in his home community. And this guy's been tearing it up. I mean, 19 years old, and across two different levels this year, he's hit 296 with 25 doubles, 22 home runs, and 86 RBIs. That would be tied, those 22 home runs, for the Giants' major league lead with Matt Chapman. His OPS, 923 in 99 games. He won't turn 20 until October 20th. This kid's the real deal. I mean, we saw him in the rookie league a couple years ago, just tearing it up, or that was last year. Man, this guy's path has been so fast. He was in rookie league last year in 2023. My brain was telling me that was 2022, but it wasn't. It was 2023. And he got all the way up to now. I mean, he's in Double-A Richmond. He's going to start next year in Double-A or maybe even Triple-A. It would not shock me if this guy gets an invite to the Giants spring training next year. The way that this kid has been playing, unreal. His OPS at high A, let's just talk about what he did in high A Eugene, because my God, his OPS in high A Eugene was higher than it was even in rookie ball. His numbers in high A are the best that they've been all through his career in the minor leagues. Every level that he's gone up seems like he's getting better. He has 12 home runs in 48 games at the high A level. With Eugene, he's batting .335, on base percentage of .442, slugging of .619. I mean, this guy is the real deal. A big. I mean, he's a big dude, and he got called or drafted as a two-way player. The Giants have basically said, we're not doing that BS anymore. And so he's going to be a first baseman / DH. Sometimes he's played some outfield a little bit, not really this year at all, but he did last year play some outfield. So I think he more tracks as a DH / first baseman with a big power bat, which is something that this Giants team really misses. And earlier this season, I speculated that, jokingly, like maybe Bryce Eldridge is going to be on a Giants roster at some point next season. Like when the Giants were down bad in the middle of the year, it seems like they couldn't, find a power hitter for most of the season. They got this guy who's just nothing but power down in the minors. And I said it kind of jokingly, saying maybe he comes up next year. But I mean, if he keeps tearing it up, man, that's going to be not entirely impossible. And that would just be an incredibly fast path to the big leagues. And I mean, they got a lot of guys that are right on the cusp of being ready, should be ready before him as far as pitchers go and things like that. But Bryce Eldridge has to be the number one position player prospect that I am most excited for. He is obviously their number one ranked prospect in all of their minor league system. And we talk a lot about the pitchers, Reggie Crawford, Mason Black, Carson Wisenhunt, these types of guys. We rarely get this excited about Giants position player prospects. I mean, look how the Marco Luciano thing has turned out. Not great. Mixed results. Dude doesn't have a defensive position and seems to not really have as much power at the dish as you would hope that he would have. As far as home run power goes, he's got, gap to gap power. But there's just a little something more to be desired with Luciano at the dish. He's been hitting singles, no problem. But I mean, I would like to see that home run power from a guy who's essentially a DH with no defensive position. Bryce Eldridge gives you that. Bryce Eldridge is someone you should be excited about. This guy, one last stat for you. He won the Player of the Week before getting promoted for the Northwest League with the Eugene Emeralds in High A. This last week, this guy batted over 500, batted 550, hit 5 home runs, and had an OPS over 2,000, 2,100 over this last week with 30 total bases, recorded a multi-home run game in the middle of that streak as well. That is unreal. That is like, I can't even do that in MLB The Show. Maybe if I turned it on like the easiest setting, maybe. But this isn't like insane video game type numbers for a kid who is absolutely mashing. And yes, I know I'm getting excited about a guy who just got promoted from high single A into double A. But this is what we need for this Giants team to get better, is guys like this to work out and pan out. So get to know Bryce Eldridge and get excited, because I think that this guy is actually going to be a real dude for the San Francisco Giants. They could have used a real dude at the dish tonight in one of these clutch situations where the Giants ended up striking out, unable to get runners in when it mattered most. I mean, they did do okay with runners in scoring position tonight. They went 3 for 10, which is for the Giants. That's amazing. For the San Francisco Giants, that is like a world record, or at least a 2024 record for them. I'm joking. Obviously, they've had more than 3 hits with runners in scoring position in a single game, but it just feels like that this is about the maximum output for this offense. This is, I mean, the Giants offense revving at the highest gear it can rev at. Still not good enough to beat a team like the Diamondbacks. Just not. It's just not. With that, that's all the time that we got for you guys today. Kyle Harrison, rough day, but don't give up on the kid just yet. The Giants, I mean, late rallies not enough. They have failed in a lot of one-run games this year. Coming up short is the hallmark of this Giants season. And Bryce Eldridge, get to know him. The player of the week for High A Eugene, and the MLB.com's 53rd best prospect, the Giants, number 1 best prospect. So get to know him. I think this is going to be a guy that is going to be a big difference maker once he arrives with the big league squad. It's all the time that we got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.